first and then math. So Dan will go
Right.
after that.
Okay, it's going live in just a moment.
Okay, I think we're live. Good evening, everybody. My name's Deborah Gus. This is the September 4th, 2025 meeting of the Curriculum Committee of the Middletown Board of Education. I'm going to start off with introductions. Again, I'm the chair of this committee and also a board member, and I will let my fellow committee members introduce themselves. We'll start with Adam,
Hi, I'm Adam Hain, Board of Education.
Liz.
Liz Crooks, Board of Education.
Great. And looks like we have Sheila Daniels joining, who is the chair of Middletown Board of Ed. And do we have Delita, are you on? Community member? I see Delita's note taker on here. Not sure what that is.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for the intro, Deborah.
Yeah, I'm not sure. There's one person I'm not recognizing that's on here. It says Delita's note taker. Is that somebody from the administration?
I think she
No,
might be an extension.
I would assume that's Delita Rose Daniels, and she's probably having difficulties.
Okay. All right. Who's a community member? All right. Well, I'm going to then turn this over to Colleen Fitzpatrick, who is our interim chief academic officer, to introduce herself and introduce her team who will be joining us today.
Great. Thank you, Deborah. Nice to see you this evening. Good evening, board members as well. It's a pleasure to be here in this new role. As Deborah said, I am the interim chief academic officer here for Middletown Public Schools. I am just getting comfortable in my new role. As a matter of fact, today is my first day in my office. And my first curriculum meeting with all of you. And it is a pleasure and an honor to work in this capacity. I am here tonight with Yvonne Daniels, who is our supervisor for grades 6 through 12 math. I also have Rich Cordaway, who is the director for our pre-K through 12 math department. And then did Dan join us yet? And then we also have Dan Rauchi, who is joining. There he is. Dan Rauchi, who is joining us, and he is our ELA curriculum supervisor for grades 6 through 12. I thought I'd just share a little bit about what I've been doing since joining the team here in the district. Yes.
We need to introduce Lily. Sorry to interrupt.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Can you see her, the principal?
I don't see her, but I'm so happy.
I see Lily.
Yep. I'm sorry, Lily, I didn't see you. We also have joining us this evening, Dr. Liliana Oster, who is our new principal at Beeman Middle School. Thank you so much for being here, Liliana, and I do apologize that I missed you. Before I introduce my math team, who's going to give you some updates from the math department, I did just want to share a little bit about who I am and how I came to be a member of this team. I actually started in the Middletown Public Schools a very long time ago. I think this is my 33rd year of full-time teaching or administration. I began as a substitute, moved on to long-term sub, then became a kindergarten classroom teacher. My time in the classroom was in kindergarten, first and second grade. I had 23 years in that role. I then became an instructional support teacher for the district, moved on to become principal of Snow Elementary School. Then I moved into ELA curriculum supervisor for grades K to 5. And just recently, as I said, assumed this new role. It has been a pleasure to work with the team that we have on this screen in planning for the new school year. That has really been my priority, making sure that we filled classrooms with high-quality teachers and making sure that our schools had principals at the helm to lead those buildings. And now my team and I are working on making sure that we are identifying the successes that we have within the curriculum and instruction in all of our buildings and in all of our grade levels. We're looking at some of the challenges and the needs, and then collaboratively, we're going to begin to strategize on how do we develop better systems and structures so that we can bring our students, our staff, and our community the best possible education. So with that being said, I am now going to introduce my math team so that they can share out with the committee on the work that they've been doing since you last met with them in June.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you, Are we good, Deb?
Yep.
Okay, let me share my screen 1 second. Okay, so thank you, everyone. My name is Rich Cordaway. I am the Pre-K to 12 Math Director, and I'm here with my colleague, Ms. Yvonne Daniels, who's the 6-12 Math Supervisor. So tonight, we're just gonna share some updates for our math department, and then we will have a question slide at the end. So if you could just please hold your questions until then we'll answer all your questions at the end. So there was some question about 8th grade algebra previously, so pre-COVID. We know there were some questions from the community. So this was some data that we had shared, I believe it was a couple years ago, where we looked at a cohort of students from 2018. So they were it was called 8th grade accelerated math back then. There was 110 students in that 2018 cohort of 8th grade accelerated. And when that group of students became seniors, 20 of those 110 students were enrolled in AP Calculus. So that means that 82% of the 8th graders who advanced in 2018 opted out of the calculus pathway. That is one of the reasons why a student would want to accelerate in 8th grade, is so they could have the option to take a calculus. That's one way I want to add. There are other ways that students can accelerate outside of the 8th grade algebra option. But we just wanted to share this slide, which leads into this next one here. So last year, our 7th graders, 31 out of 335 7th graders achieved level 4 in Smarter Balance. So with Smarter Balance, there's 4 levels. Level 4 is considered, so level 3 and 4 are considered proficient. Level 4 is considered advanced. So those 31 are currently in algebra, and then we also have another 20 because our 8th grade algebra this year is at 51. So we have all the 7th graders who were advanced last year based on Smarter Balance. There's also there's an I-rated component there too. Some of the kids got in that way. Plus there's the algebra readiness assessment, which we give to all 7th graders in the spring. So they can matriculate into Algebra 1 if they are ready for it.
So we wanted to share some of the successes. So as Rich mentioned, we were finding that a lot of the students, when they got to high school, were dropping off of higher mathematics pathways. And so we made some changes to our programming. So we touched on de-leveling, which opened access to all students to enroll in higher mathematics classes. So in the high school now, the de-leveling has now created an opportunity for all students to be able to get higher mathematics. The strong improvements to Algebra 1. So we've mentioned before that we've had a change in our enrollment criteria, really making sure that kids are ready for that advancement in that 8th grade year, right? So as we change that enrollment, making sure they were stronger, students now in 8th grade are taking Algebra 1 that are ready for it. And then when I get to 9th grade, we had a lot of students this year that had doubled up. So they were taking double courses in 9th grade or 10th grade. So those kids are now adding to the growth in pre-calculus, right? So yes, we want to make sure kids have access to Algebra 1 in 8th grade, But the goal is so that they have higher mathematics when they get to high school. So our pre-calculus, the last 2 years, 106 and 105, with only one sophomore and 41 juniors last year. This year, enrollment has went up 26%. So there's 132 students enrolled in pre-calc. 13 of them are sophomores and 51 are juniors. So we're seeing the growth in our programming as we raise our standard of expectation for our students. There was also a question around our AP updates. And so the Calc BC was something we presented back when we got our SAT class approved in order for it to adjust and open more access. So we are now working with our teacher that is qualified to take this Calc BC class. She's doing it in collaboration with an ECE class from UConn. So the students who will take that class will have an opportunity to get the Calc 1 and Calc 2 from UConn. So we are in the process of working that. She is doing her application right now. We should have an update on that soon. And so we wanted to just touch base that we have a date. We will present this to our teachers next week at our first meeting to make sure that teachers can attend. So this is the tentative date. It is subject to change depending on our teachers. We decided that we will make this a math game night and then have a pull-out Q&A session so that parents can be engaged in some math fun, see some things that we do with our students, and then also be able to ask us some questions and answers.
So any questions?
As usual, I have many. You know, I think it's great that the number of kids taking pre-calc has increased. I'm concerned, number one, of, you know, the numbers and what we're doing for kids. If they're taking Algebra 1 in 8th grade and qualify for Algebra 1 in 8th grade, to then go into a 9th grade course that is de-leveled with students that may be struggling, how are we really supporting them on their way? So that's one question. One concern I have. We're taking kids who excelled, and then we're putting them in a course with a lot of students that are struggling. And it's, as a teacher, it is very, very difficult to meet the needs of all students, those who may be several years below grade level, the kids that are on grade level, and the kids that are beyond grade level, all in the same classroom.
Okay, I can answer that. Thank you, Ms. Crooks, for that question. Currently we're de-leveled in elementary school and in middle school and in high school. So it's K-12. Our teachers are really good at differentiating instruction. That's something that is just an ongoing thing that we're always striving to get better at, to not only meet the needs of our kids who may be struggling in certain areas, but also meet the needs of kids who need advancement. So that's something that's a K-12 issue that we are always trying to get better at. But that's definitely not just a 9th grade like math problem. That's something that we have to get better at, and we have over the years. So yeah, it's definitely and I would like to add, our algebra is not leveled either, right? So our algebra in 8th grade is not like, there's not like an honors 8th grade algebra. It's just Algebra 1, same class as it's Algebra 1 at the high school. So yes, we do understand that kids have different needs, but that's our charge as professional educators, is to meet those needs, and our teachers do an excellent job of that.
I just want to add that if we look at our data, our students are actually more successful this year than they've been ever in the past. So although we understand that that's a concern, our data is showing that the changes we have made are actually pretty successful, because our kids are now moving along, progressing at a faster rate, and they're progressing to stay and maintain. So we have more sophomores this year that are taking pre-calc than ever before. And then we also have more pre-calc students overall than ever before. So the concerns are there, and we're going to continue to watch the data. And if the data shows us different, then we will respond to it. But I think the data right now is showing us that we're growing in our math skills.
Okay. And I mean, I do want to say that I just want to respond to Rich Cordaway that I understand that all kids that are in 8th grade Algebra 1 are all taking one class on the same level, but those are kids that tested into 8th grade Algebra 1, so they tend to be students that were more advanced in math. The other question that I really had, and this is based back from April with the Parents for Transparency in Education and one of their representatives that came to the Board of Ed meeting. And I brought this up in June about offering, an AP pre-calc and offering Calc BC. And I was told at that point that we had kind of missed the deadline and that you were going to need to have, and I'm sorry if I'm going to have to look through my notes to get the exact wording, but parent meeting to get their input on whether this is something they would like. So I did, where are you with that, with the parent meeting? Because my understanding that I was told is this needs to go into the December program of studies in order to make it a reality. And that these meetings would be held early in the fall. So I want to know, when these meetings are happening or if you've already had them, how you're inviting people, and I think I emailed one of you that said I would like to be on that committee.
So, so 2 points. We are we're having the meeting. That's the October 29th meeting. So during the math game night, there will be a pullout session of Q&A where parents and community will be able to ask us questions. We will have information about what's happening now and questions about what is to come. So that is that meeting that we spoke about. We didn't plan on having a committee. I don't know if that was a disconnect or misunderstanding because we already had a committee. When we put together our plan, it was a 3-year plan, and our connections of what classes were next is a part of the 3-year plan. So the Calc BC was already in the works. We're just taking the steps, and the steps have to be taken before we can do them. As far as the AP pre-calc, again, we're going based on the data and the information we have in front. So when that class is something we'll offer, we will bring that to the table. It's just not something we're offering right now. We are working on the Calc BC, and it is going to give a UConn Calc 1 and a Calc 2 credit. So we're taking it as we can.
Okay, I would really like to see something moving forward, since this was an April meeting, which is, 6 months ago now.
Yes,
Sooner rather than later. And I think it was, I'm sorry, I looked at the wording. I guess it was a parent workshop.
Yep. So that the Q&A session will be part of the math night.
Okay, and that's still within the purview of actually getting this into the program of studies by December?
So the course that we're getting into the program of studies is the Calc BC course. It won't be starting in December because we don't have any kids that will qualify for next year. But all those questions will be answered on October 29th. We'll have all the details for you.
Okay, I thought that, since the parent had actually, brought this up, what about the AP pre-calc? That's not even going to be discussed?
On October 29th, we can answer questions about them, but that's not in the plan for right now.
And why is it not?
Because we're responding to the data, and it's not something that is up next for our plan.
Okay, so I can tell the parent group that they really don't have any say.
No, we would
I
encourage
wouldn't
all
say that.
parents.
I would encourage
Yeah.
them to come on October 29th
Yeah.
to get all the details. That's what I would
Yes.
encourage them.
Mhm.
Okay, but you just said it's not on your plan. So if they say that they would like to offer this, they're just going to be told no?
We're going to give them some data and we're going to have a conversation. That's what's going to happen.
Okay.
I'm getting a little confused with the BC. Is that the same as AP calculus?
Oh, so there's an
Yes.
AP calculus class, that's an APA, and then there's an AP Calc BC. So there are two separate courses. So we
Okay.
already offer the APA course. This will be a secondary course that we will offer, AP BC.
Understood. Thank you.
So can I just ask what is the course that Liz is asking about? That
The
An
AP pre-calc.
the
Pre-calc.
Yeah,
AAP Calc A?
No, it's a
No.
whole different course.
Oh, okay.
well, it's not really a different course. We offer pre-calc. And what the parent wanted and this group wanted is they were asking if there could be, you know, both an AP pre-calc and an advanced placement pre-calc.
Okay.
So that students could, you know, if you had 60 students or 50 students that were opting for pre-calc, some of those students may want to go to advanced placement pre-calc, while the other ones may stay in regular pre-calc. And so it's just, you know, allowing students to choose a pathway that may be more or less challenging.
Right. I'm one of the questions I had all along, Yvonne, is I don't know if there's a college credit for AP pre-calc. I've never heard of it before because that's not usually a college level class. Is that correct?
There's they do offer a pre-calc course for most of them that gives a college credit, but the college credit is a developmental credit. That class is not offered in a math degree. So an AP pre-calc wouldn't be accepted into a math credit for a math degree.
Okay, thank you. That clarifies it.
Yes,
Thank you.
you're welcome.
Any other questions? All right, and I do know that when we were having these conversations last year, there was discussions around Physics C. And again, unfortunately, Scott Peasley couldn't join us, but he'll join us next time. And my understanding is that it's important, as we talked about last year, we got to get the calculus class settled, the BC calculus class, before we can, you know, move on to the Physics C. But I just want to make sure that people realize we're not discussing it here because unfortunately Scott couldn't be here, but there are complications around teaching Physics C without having the BC calculus in place.
I just want to make a correction. It was about students taking Calc A in junior year in order to take the physics credit. So as you see, since we have all of those sophomores that are taking pre-calc right now, they'll be taking calc their junior year. So then all of those kids will be able to qualify to take the physics. So as we grow that cohort of students that take pre-calc in their sophomore year, hopefully each year will grow. That could be the cohort that will be able to take the physics class. So we're on our way. Probably not next year you'll have a cohort, but the following year you should be able to have a good cohort.
Great.
Okay,
great.
and I looked up on College Board just to clarify, because my understanding, so Physics 1 and 2, they recommend that you've had Algebra 2.
Right.
For Physics C, they recommend, and the electrical and magnetic would be difficult because they recommend that you had the mechanical first. But both of those only require that you've either had AP Calc or that you are taking calculus concurrently. So they're not saying it's a prerequisite. You can take calculus concurrent and still take the Physics C.
I'm just telling you what the science department was waiting for. I don't have the expertise in physics, so I don't want to misquote at all, Liz. Whatever you're reading might be absolutely correct. I was just quoting the science department last time. I don't know the requirements.
Okay, yeah, I went on the College Board website to double check.
Well, yeah, and I just want to remind, like, we are the math department, so we are the science is a separate department. So yeah, I'm sure they can answer those questions.
Yeah, and I just wanted to correct the conception that it had to be taken beforehand, because according to College Board, it does not need to be.
Okay, thanks for clarifying, Liz.
And again, as we discussed last time, I know Scott was saying this was in the works in the science, so we'll get an update on that in the next meeting.
Yes, and I do want to let everyone know that he was sorry that he was unable to come. Had we been able to invite him in a more timely manner, he would have tried to be here, but he had already a responsibility that he had to attend to.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Well, thank you guys. Moving in the right directions. All good to hear. And you have another agenda item. Colleen, I'll turn it back to you.
We do. We actually, under the guidance of the late Dr. McCann, we have a team that was working on a position statement for the use of AI. As we know, that is becoming a very hot topic in not just education, but everywhere. So I am going to now turn this over to Mr. Dan Rauchi, who's going to share a little bit with the committee about the work that they have engaged in and where we are in that process.
Good evening, everyone. I know the little box in the corner of my screen says Mr. Cordaway, but I'm Dan Rauchi, ELA Curriculum Supervisor. Happy to join you here today. So I just want to give a little bit of a kind of a context about what this is, but I have some slides I'll walk you through, and then of course be able to take some questions at the end. So as Colleen Fitzpatrick had said, AI is seemingly, increasingly present in our world today, really ubiquitous. It's hard to, open up a web browser or shop on Amazon or really anything without some news about AI. So we really wanted as a district to be able to start the process of addressing the use of AI within our schools. And that's a big task because it's obviously a very complex task. And where it isn't directly this presentation related to AI in our curriculum. I just want to be clear about that. AI itself has a lot of implications for how we teach, how students learn, how they generate content. So this is something that we really wanted to get ahead of. And as Colleen had said, Dr. McCann was really supportive of this work. And she had myself and Ann Buchanan, the librarian at Middletown High School, co-chair a committee and I'll talk all about that in a couple of moments. So this is Rich's computer. Hopefully it works well. Let's go. The process so we decided that it was really important to develop a position statement. Lots of universities, colleges, educational organizations have been grappling with AI. So under the guidance of the assistant superintendent in charge of curriculum, a committee of teachers, staff, building administrators, and district administrators met monthly from January to June of 2025 to develop a position statement on the use of artificial intelligence models. So we had a really wide cross-section of people who work within our schools, and Ann and I designed a lot of this process along with research, learning opportunity through local organizations like ACES, Western Connecticut State University, and we really wanted to be able to do online research as well and give teachers who some were users, some were not users, the opportunity to talk about education and our hopes and goals for students. So we really started with our district core documents, our core values, the instructional vision, and the portrait of a global citizen. Because if we wanted to envision how students are when they leave, or in and when they leave our schools, we had to start there and then talk about, well, what implications does AI have for this? As opposed to just thinking like, how do we use AI? Is AI good or bad? Rather, what do we want for students? What are our values that we've already stated? And then how does AI fit into that if it does? AI, like a lot of things, is, like I said, hard to avoid. It's out there. People are using it. So we wanted to make sure that we didn't just turn a blind eye to it, pretend it wasn't there, and move on with our lives. We thought that would be really problematic. And also we were, seeing students engaging with the use of it, teachers using it in their practices. So we really knew we had a lot of users within our district. So we reached out to everybody from secondary. And this was a secondary only committee. We didn't have elementary on this, so I also just want to be clear about that. But we'll talk about where we are with the process. We did attend those trainings, like I said, and really ground this in best practices. So the position statement we feel is a first step towards the district developing a policy and practices for our schools. We knew we were just an exploratory committee. We were not a deciding body where we make policy. That wasn't our role. We wanted to really just get into that intellectual and practical application and pursuit of how do we use this with our students, if we do. So I just wanted to go over a couple key terms that we use throughout this process. We talked about shared beliefs, belief statements, and position statements. So the way we define these things, where shared beliefs are widely held opinions or values of a group or a society. Belief statements, if we say these things that we believe, are formal, often written expressions of those beliefs. And position statements are a concise, structured explanation that serves to communicate an organization's stance or perspective. So again, we're not speaking for Middletown Schools, but as the committee on AI secondary, we decided to develop a position statement with the hopes that we would have a venue such as this and beyond to then further the work and widen our group of people who would have input on this. Because we knew that this committee wasn't the sole creators of any type of, weighted procedure or policy around AI. It was just a starting point. And I was really happy that Dr. McCann had led us to do this. So this visual represents those grounding documents I talked about a moment ago. Our portrait of a global citizen, the district's core values, these are all things right from our website, and the instructional vision, collaboration, critical thinking, responsive use of data, student-centered learning, equity, and social emotional learning. Core values, things like empowerment, community, growth, authenticity, and there's a lot of overlap with the portrait of a global citizen, which, as you can see on the screen, is a little too small to read. But these were things we pulled in and said, hey, what do we value as a community, as a school district? And what are our hopes for students? And how, like I said, how does AI play into that? So taking this as our starting point, and then, of course, doing all that reading and research and sort of experimentation with AI, we, through a process that I won't bore you with all the details of, developed a one-pager that is the Middletown Public Schools committee position statement. So again, I'm not speaking for the schools, but the committee's position statement on artificial intelligence. You don't need to read what's on that screen because I'm going to walk through it piece by piece in just a moment. So our position statement, the broad statement, is our engagement with artificial intelligence is guided by the principles of responsibility, authenticity, and equity. These were the terms that when people talked about, they pulled out of those other, three documents, and the best practices we saw, things from other districts. We said these are what we want our students to guide our students and guide our adults' use of AI. We then broke those down because there was so much dialogue, so much discussion, and so much content created by this group of teachers, administrators, school staff, that we knew that we had to further than just that one statement, right? We had to incorporate the input. So there's a lot of synthesis of that input, and this is one of the forms it took. So responsibility, the first component of our belief of what should guide the use of AI, is that we believe all users should interact intentionally with artificial intelligence models because of the widespread environmental impacts. You've probably heard, it drains a lot of power. They use a lot of water. This is just like our data centers and processing. This does have environmental aspects. So we ask that people, would prompt AI intentionally and use it responsibly in that way. Data security and privacy implications. I had the fortune of going to Western Connecticut State University to a school safety seminar that was attended by all different types of people whose job it is to help keep our students in our schools safe. And they talked about AI from a perspective of data security, what we put out onto the web, just like, what people post on social media or what people do with their phones and photography. We really want to make sure that we're keeping our students safe, their data safe, just like we do with all the products we put in front of students, the data security and privacy agreements that they sign, things that are vetted through the state and our district, because we want to make sure that people aren't using this in a way that might get them into some trouble. And again, this isn't saying we're condoning the use of AI by students. This is saying if one uses AI, we have to be aware of these things. And lastly, of this slide, the possibility of generating or interacting with information that's biased or incorrect. Lots of biased, incorrect information out there. AI is no different. It's a model created by humans. It isn't always correct. So just like, years ago, we'd say to kids not to trust Wikipedia as its own. It's fine as a starting point. We shouldn't wholeheartedly trust AI either. We want people to think for themselves. Authenticity, the second component of our position statement, it has a lot of implications for our teachers. We believe that the creative process is human-centered, and that we are the ones in the driver's seats, that we are the creative entity that ought to engage in this thought in various subjects. But that artificial intelligence is a tool and a resource not the sole creator of content. Yes, it's a good adaptive tool. It could do a lot of things for us, but humans are the drivers. The use of artificial intelligence needs to be transparent. We would imagine that students, have used AI for a number of things, whether it's idea generation, for something they're writing, checking their grammar, if you use Grammarly or, different things of Google or Word, it's correcting our grammar for us. That is AI. And so where does the human end and where does the AI begin is a question. So we want transparency on a continuum of completely human created to completely AI created. We would imagine that most people, adults and kids, particularly older students, fall somewhere in the middle of that continuum, right? We know that if they're turning in something that's completely AI generated, that's academic dishonesty. That is not their own creative thought. And if they're creating something completely human created, that's fine. But we want to talk about those other, more nuanced points along that continuum. But Modern Language Association, MLA, has ways to cite the chats that people do on the prompts that people have with artificial intelligence models. So what we're really thinking to do is, like, if one is to use this, that it's transparent, that we do cite it and we share what that interaction is like, so that it's not in the darkness, so that it's not hidden, because it is a very difficult thing to block. It is a thing that people are going to be using in their lives, most likely. I don't have a crystal ball, but I would imagine. So how do we do this in a safe way that also doesn't interfere with the cognitive lift of students? Because if machines start thinking for us, I think that's problematic personally. And lastly, users need to analyze and evaluate the output of AI and incorporate it appropriately. Just like we would ask students to read with a critical lens, read a source of information, annotate, ask questions, and then incorporate some of that thinking and learning that is from some other source, right? It could be hopefully from a human source when they're doing that reading. If AI puts something out, how does an adult or a child then become aware enough to be able to incorporate that through an analytical process? So again, these things are our beliefs. This doesn't spell out the procedures and practices of the district. We wanted to deliver just the starting steps and then hope to move forward with a committee to do those next steps. The last component, equity, we believe that artificial intelligence models could be used as an adaptive tool to help meet the needs of students. We know that lots of services that we use in Middletown schools we're able to adjust Lexile levels, so the reading levels for students, so that something is more accessible, Newsy LA being a big one, Diffit being another, where it can change the Lexile of a text to make it more accessible to a student who may need that without changing the content. Still, to go back to the bullet from the previous slide, it's the responsibility of the curriculum team and teachers to make sure that if something's being adjusted for Lexile, it's not losing some of the components that we want to have in that piece, right? If it's informational, if it's literary, we don't want to water a text down until it's not what the author intended either. So again, it takes that intentional human eye to determine that the product or the reading is vetted and should be put in front of students. We believe that a shared vocabulary helps with communication. It helps us as adults talk about it, right? Differences of what, even with defining what a large language model is or what AI is a complex thing to begin with. So making sure that we're not losing time to the tech jargon. And I know people have given me feedback myself about educational jargon and asked to explain it in layman's terms. For people who aren't in the educational world, I think this is true of AI as well, right? Like, we have to meet people where they are and help to understand what this thing is. And again, not that we have all the answers, not that we have all those practices, but we know that we have to be speaking the same language, using the same vocabulary to break down the noise in that communication system. And then lastly, every person should have equitable access to district-approved AI tools. Again, that's if there ever is a point where the district approves AI tools. They have not, as of this point, picked specific AI tools, or but if students do have access and do use them, that they have equal access, unless, of course, there's an instance where a student is demonstrating academic dishonesty. That's a different story. But we want to be able to be sure that kids equally have tools at their advantage if and when approved. Potential next steps. So that's it in a nutshell. Like I said, it is a one-pager. We kept it brief. It was a lot to synthesize. It took a lot of time, but we felt very strongly about what we generated. and then we think that there's a lot of implications as to where this could go. So continue to investigate current research on AI. It's an ever-changing world. It's ever-changing landscape. So to be able to like stay ahead of that, because it changes at a very rapid pace. Of course, Board of Education involvement. This is the first time we're sharing it with Board of Education members. At the end of the committee process, we shared it with Dr. V and with Colleen Fitzpatrick. And then we've also taken this to our administrative team, our administrators throughout the district, and started to talk about this with teachers beyond the design team. So again, not as policy, but as a set of beliefs that could help practice. But we want, of course, the Board of Ed involvement, because I do think that if we look around the state, country, and world, you see a lot of colleges, universities, but also public schools developing not only position statements, but also practices around this. So again, first step. And lastly, to design and provide professional learning at the time that it becomes appropriate to do so. So we've, like I said, started to share this. People are very excited about it. They're interested. They're asking for it. But at the same time, we want to make sure that we're in line with the district's policies, and the Board of Education before we moved any further. So this was, I think, a really great effort that was provided to us by Dr. McCann and Dr. V. It did take, time to develop these things, but Ann Buchanan and myself were really excited to have this really great team of thinkers to grapple with what we know is a complex problem or issue or opportunity. So that is it. I just wanted to walk you through that, but I am open to any sort of input or questions or ideas. And then my hope again is that the district does take up the opportunity to create some of these next steps.
Any
I'm
questions?
glad. Yeah, well, a couple comments, questions. I'm glad that, you put down one of the last steps of provide professional learning, because as you were talking, my thing was, what about professional development for
Yeah.
teachers? But I know you're not there yet.
Mhm.
One of my suggestions would be to reach out to some teachers that have used AI.
Mhm.
I know one teacher that has taught her students, an English teacher, the difference between plagiarism and copying and taking all the ideas or using AI. Let's put in one sentence that I've written and let's see what AI does with it. And then can I model the rest of my sentences and improve the structure and vocabulary?
Yeah.
So I would really recommend, reaching out to some teachers that have actually used it.
Yeah.
Because I know there's so many dangers, and I also know that there's so many values.
Yeah, I agree wholeheartedly. And I thank you for that. And I agree. And I'm glad that, you've talked to some teachers about this as well, because it is a useful tool. I don't have, a secretary or assistant. So like I use it to achieve tasks, and because it can make my work a little bit more streamlined. I'm still driving that, but yeah, like that. I love that that teacher did that. We did reach out, so Yvonne Daniels is on the call here today, of course, and I did do the request of the Beeman team. We were one of the stations for the Back to School PD, where we shared information around AI like this and beyond, like showed them some different models that they could use in their work. But we did send out a Google form and collect some of the input, and there was, again, that excitement. Oh, I use it for this, I use it for that. And so we've started to collect that, but really only that Beeman team as of right now. There are a lot of MHS teachers and admin on the design team. And then we've reached out to the Beeman team specifically in that training. But I think that's a great idea to widen that net.
Yeah, and if you want, I can give you the name of someone. You can, email me.
Yeah.
That actually presented for a company that is connected with HMH.
Okay, great. Will do. Yeah, I'll send you an email after the meeting. Thank you.
Okay.
And Liz, it's funny because IM and HMH now both have an AI component that can be utilized by teachers, administrators. I don't believe that the students have the access, but it is a means by which teachers can learn a little bit more about how to deliver instruction. And it also allows administrators to better understand what the look-fors are when they're in a classroom, so they can simply put in, what is the objective and goal of Unit 1, Day 2, Lesson 3, and they can get some information on what should they be seeing in that classroom. So again, I am stepping into some work that was completed before I stepped into this role, and I was very excited for Dan to share it with you this evening, because we want to be sure that the Board of Ed is embracing our steps that we're taking toward, as we said, understanding those areas of concern, but also those areas in which AI can support us in becoming better at what we do. So I thank you all for allowing Dan to share out this evening, and Liz for your feedback.
Thank
I
you.
just
I mean,
wanted to add-
I know little about AI, but I know people who know a lot more, so.
I just wanted to add that Dan did a lot of great work. I was honored to be on the committee with him. But like, I think that what he also did with the AI committees, he made sure that he accounted for all stakeholders. So like he addressed the need for admins and what it could do to support them, teachers, what it can do to support them, students, what it can do to support them. So I commend his hard work into this program, because we were able to actually look at all stakeholders and how it helps all of them. So when it is time for us to push out, a lot more PD, we'll be able to look at the different levels of PD necessary. So I just wanted to shout you out, Dan, because I appreciated his hard work during that committee process.
Thank you, Yvonne. And I appreciate you having you on the committee and helping as part of the design team. And then the first steps of sharing this with a wider audience. And I think you said it really well there. I was really kind of floored by how my perspective was widened by having so many diverse perspectives on that committee. Because I think sometimes, I'll speak for myself, even if I think, hey, I use it in this way, hey, maybe other people should just use it in that way. That's really myopic. And I think it's really short-sighted. So like I really had my perspective widened when I heard people saying, oh, like let's think about how I might use it, how this student might use it. And just hearing those things from adults, like you're saying, Ms. Crooks, like they use it differently because they're different people. So it's very adaptive and it can be very individualized. And it also just really showed me the power of diverse perspectives on committees from all over. So I think it was really great.
Thank you for your work.
Thank you.
I'll just add that I think it's really important, Yvonne, your comments around that you that Dan made sure that he had everyone there, and you garnering that extra perspective from every stakeholder is really important. And Dan, thank you so much, because this is such an important topic for all of us to get on board and understand. And I look forward to hearing more about it at a board meeting.
Great. Thank you so much. It was really exciting work. I was excited to plan with Ann Buchanan and like take the work of the team. And the next month couldn't come fast enough to that next committee meeting. It really was energetic because we knew we were grappling with something important and difficult. And that like really helped us engage in that process. So thank you for saying.
Thank you.
I just want to, this is critical and we've got to move quickly on it. I mean, I was just having a conversation today with my husband about, basically before each class now, professors are articulating what their expectations are for their students with respect to AI. And, it's because these high school students are all using it right now. So they've got to get ahead of it. So, in terms of your next step, I know you're sharing it with the Board of Ed. Are there other concrete things that you need from the Board of Ed to keep moving this forward? And again, I think we really need to push it forward because the kids are, in some cases, the kids are ahead of where the teachers are on this. And so we want to make sure that we get up to speed on that as well as much as we can. So those are our two comments and thinking about where you see this going next and how quickly it can kind of get rolled out.
Yeah. I mean, I definitely have been waiting for the moment to share because I would love to upscale this. I'd love to, and this again is secondary focus, not that we couldn't. So that's one aspect of it is like widen it to different audiences. Just as our portrait of a global citizen is written for all, it has like sort of stages of developmental appropriateness, throughout grades. Again, the district hasn't created a policy about whether its use is allowed or disallowed. So we were kind of operating with our beliefs first, And then, so I think the thing from the board that would be good is to start to, yourselves decide what policy you might want to make around these things.
Yeah.
But I think too that, like, if this statement itself is something, and I'll send it directly to you, so it's not just the presentation, but I can share the whole presentation and this one-pager document, because I do think there's room for improvement, right? I do think there are probably blind spots that we didn't get a view of. So I guess my first request is just to take a look at it and to do some thinking about it, and then share your own thoughts. Because I think, as the board then decides, like, well, what direction do we want to have the district go in, and who do we want to have involved? It would be good to be able to at least have that position statement, even if it's not in this form, if this is even a starting point, but for the district to say, this is with some tweaking, or this is as it stands, or this in some other format is the position of the district. Because again, we wanted to speak for the committee, but then kind of not just pass it over and be done with it. We want to be involved, but what that looks like, of course, takes your approval and your participation and vetting before we move any further. So I guess my ask would be to, like, once I share this with you, to give any sort of input, feedback, or approval as you all think is appropriate.
Great. Well, thank you very much for sharing. I appreciate it. And is there anything else that you wanted to share, Colleen?
I think that's it. I just want to say thank you again for having us this evening and sharing out. Deb, I look forward to you and I coordinating for future meetings. I promise you it will be in a more timely manner. And as I said, Liz, we will definitely have your questions regarding the physics course on that October agenda. And you can count on Scott being here to answer some of those questions.
Great.
Okay.
And reminder to the community about the workshop that's coming up, and making sure we get the word out so we can get the parents to provide their input as well. So
yeah, we are actually, one thing I forgot, we're starting a math monthly newsletter, so that will go out this Friday, and it will have those details on it. So it's already created. I just was waiting for feedback from teachers. So we will start that to have a little bit more transparency of what we're doing. The units are focused. I don't know why that just came up.
Just one last comment. I didn't want to butt in earlier about thank you to Dan, Yvonne, and the team for doing the AI thing. I use it a lot for my business, the ChatGPT. I have like the paid subscription, and I'm just so thankful that I was around before AI came, because I'm relying on it now. And like one of my favorite things is teach me like I'm a little kid. And it just walks me step by step through things. But I know how to create and how to learn on my own. And that's one thing I fear, that kids will just use it to think for them. And and it's good that we have a cohesive plan.
Yeah, no, that's well said. Thank you for sharing that too, because we heard from teachers a lot about the concerns about it replacing the cognitive lift of students, and it may be interfering with their own development. So where we know that it's out there and we can use it, we also know that it's not appropriate at times because it may get in the way of people's development. So I think that's part of it too, is knowing when to use it as adults, for like and students, because it could answer the questions for them. It can create content. So and this isn't to go all tech again, that continuum. Like, we want kids writing on paper. We want them up at the white books. We want them creating real things in visual arts and making music. So we definitely want to make sure that each of those things in our curriculum is still happening, I guess, more organically, if you will, but then having those electronic interactions as is appropriate. But I take your point well. Thank you.
Yeah, I agree 100%. There is that muscle that has to be used in AI. If it's doing it for you, that muscle that your brain is not exercising. So we definitely need to think about that. So again, thank you so much to everybody for sharing your presentations, all the work that you do. And it is 6:24, and I will adjourn this meeting. Thank you, everybody, and good evening.
I'd like to say thank you, everyone, too.
Thank you.
Bye.